The halls of St. Joseph Regional Medical Center in Boise, Idaho, were quiet for a Friday night. Rain tapped gently against the windows, and the scent of disinfectant hung in the air like something permanent. In Delivery Room 3, the silence was broken only by Claire Bennett's ragged breathing and the soft encouragements of a nurse wiping sweat from her forehead. "You're almost there," said Dr. Adam Reynolds, standing at the foot of the bed with practiced calm.
"One more push, Claire. You've got this."
Claire couldn't answer. Her hands gripped the bed rails with white-knuckled desperation. Pain came in crashing waves, each stronger than the last, stealing her breath and blurring the edges of the room. She had gone into labor 9 days past her due date, and for days, something had felt off, an instinct in her gut that had turned into a quiet fear. Beside her, Michael stood with one hand clutching hers, the other trembling. His face was pale, jaw clenched, trying to be strong but failing. "You're doing amazing," he whispered, but his voice cracked halfway through. Claire didn't hear him. Her whole world narrowed to the pressure building inside her, the fire spreading through her spine, the need to get her baby into the world. She pushed with everything she had left, and for a moment, the room went utterly still. Then came the cry. High-pitched, clear, and loud enough to pierce through the veil of pain and exhaustion, it was the sound she had waited months to hear. Her baby was alive. But no one moved. There was no joy. No clapping or laughter. The nurses froze, glancing at one another. One of them dropped a clamp with a loud metallic clatter. Dr. Reynolds stood still, his expression unreadable. Claire lifted her head. What is it?" she gasped. "Is something wrong?" Michael didn't speak. He was staring, eyes wide, lips parted as if trying to form words.
"Michael."
Claire turned her gaze toward the foot of the bed. A nurse took a step back, cradling the newborn in a sterile white towel, but not moving to clean him. Claire caught a glimpse, just a glimpse, and her heart stuttered. The baby's skin was not smooth or pink. It was dark, no, not dark, but covered in something. A thick, black layer of hair. Not the fine downy lanugo newborns sometimes had, but dense coarse fur that covered his cheeks, his forehead, his limbs. Even his eyelids. Claire blinked, disbelieving. "What is that?" she whispered. Dr. Reynolds stepped closer, his face pale. "We're not sure," he said slowly. "We're running tests." "Is he breathing?"
Claire interrupted, panic rising like a flood.
"Yes," one nurse answered, almost reluctantly. He's stable. All vital signs are strong. But what?"
Claire demanded.
"He's alive. He's crying. Then let me hold him." Dr. Reynolds hesitated. "Claire, we need to take him to the neonatal observation unit. Just to make sure." "No," she said firmly. "He's my son. I want to see him. Now." There was a long pause. Then the nurse holding the baby stepped forward. She pulled back the towel slightly, revealing the child's tiny face, delicate features almost hidden beneath the unusual layer of hair.
Claire stared.
He was beautiful. His little fists clenched near his chest, legs kicking weakly beneath the towel. His eyes opened briefly, dark and alert. "He's perfect," Claire whispered. Michael didn't move. He remained frozen, his hand limp in Claire's. Dr. Reynolds finally broke the silence.
"Claire, I need to be honest with you.
This could be a rare genetic condition. Something called congenital hypertrichosis. It causes excessive hair growth, sometimes due to dormant genes resurfacing."
Is it dangereux?
Claire asked quickly. "We don't know," the doctor admitted. "It's extremely rare. Fewer than 100 documented cases in medical history. Most are benign, but you don't know," she cut in. He nodded. "That's why we'd like to run more advanced tests. Genetic sequencing, metabolic panels." "You're talking about poking and prodding him," Claire said. "Running him through machines like he's a lab sample." Dr. Reynolds didn't respond. Claire looked at Michael, hoping, praying for support.
"C'est something."
He shook his head, eyes still on the baby. I don't know what to say. I wasn't prepared for this."
Claire's voice cracked.
"He's our son. He's different. He's a baby." The nurse began to wrap the towel around Aiden again.
Clarisse briscoqued.
You're not taking him, she said, voice rising. Not unless I go with him.
Claire, docteur, Reynolds started.
I carried him for 9 months. I went through every checkup, every scare. I felt him kick. I gave him life. You don't get to tell me he's a medical mystery. He's my son. Outside the delivery room, the hospital began to stir. Doctors whispered in hallways. A researcher in a lab coat reviewed scans on a glowing tablet. A call was placed, to someone higher up. Something had happened that night. Something no one had expected. But inside that delivery room, none of that mattered to Claire. She didn't care about research. Or headlines. Or rare conditions. All she cared about was the small living breathing bundle in front of her.
Eden Bennett.
Her son. 3 days passed. Claire remained in the recovery wing of St. Joseph, confined to a small room with a single window and a constant stream of quiet, watchful nurses. No one brought balloons or flowers. There were no family photos taped to the wall. The silence that had fallen in the delivery room never truly lifted. And Aiden was still not with her. He had been moved to a neonatal observation unit down the hall, for monitoring, they said. But every time she asked to see him, hold him, feed him, she was met with delays. We're just waiting on a specialist, one nurse explained vaguely. There are some preliminary tests we'd like to finish, said another. It didn't feel right. Claire had read the pamphlets, attended prenatal classes, listened to hours of podcasts on motherhood. None of them prepared her for this, being separated from her baby, surrounded by doctors who whispered outside her door and refused to make eye contact. Michael, once so present and attentive, had grown distant. He avoided her questions, spending hours pacing the hospital's parking lot, claiming he needed air or coffee or a break. But when she pressed him, he shrugged. I'm trying to process this, Claire. He's not what we expected. Claire wanted to scream. What they expected. He was their son. What did it matter that he was born with hair? Why did that change everything? On the 4th day, Dr. Monroe arrived. She introduced herself as a pediatric geneticist from the Northwest Human Advancement Institute, a research partner affiliated with the hospital. She was in her early 40s, sharply dressed but with kind eyes and a soft voice that cut through the cold professionalism Claire had come to expect. I'm here to help, she said, pulling up a chair beside Claire's bed. I've reviewed the early scans. Your son is, from a developmental standpoint, healthy. But there are anomalies, particularly in his skin and hair growth patterns, that we haven't seen before. Claire frowned. So what does that mean? Dr. Monroe hesitated. It means we're in uncharted territory. His condition resembles congenital hypertrichosis in appearance, but the structure of the hair follicles is different. Dense. More, evolved in a way. We're requesting permission to run further testing. No. The answer came out sharper than Claire intended.
No needles.
No probes. No labs. Dr. Monroe didn't flinch.
I understand. À ma modeur myself.
I know how this must feel. No, you don't, Claire snapped. You don't know what it's like to carry a child, feel him grow inside you, and then have everyone treat him like a case study the moment he's born. Dr. Monroe lowered her eyes.
You're right.
I won't pretend to understand. But Claire, you should know, there are already inquiries. The hospital administration has been contacted by a private lab in California. They're requesting access to Aiden's samples. Claire sat upright, her pulse pounding. What? You mean someone already sent them something? I believe a preliminary blood draw was sent without your consent. Claire's throat went dry. She stared at Dr. Monroe, searching for the lie. But there was none. That's illegal. Yes. But it's also not the first time it's happened with a child showing unusual markers. The system has loopholes. Labs exploit them. And once it's out there, it's difficult to get it back.
Claire's voice trembled.
So what do I do? Just sit here while they dissect him? No, Monroe said quietly. You could leave. The room seemed to freeze around them. What? I didn't say that, Monroe said, folding her hands. But if you were to take your child and go, the hospital would have limited ability to intervene. At least not right away. Claire stared at her. Why are you telling me this? Because I believe your son deserves to be raised by someone who sees him as a child, not as data. That night, Claire didn't sleep. Michael came in around midnight, smelling like beer and anxiety. He didn't ask about Aiden. Didn't say anything at all. Claire sat at the edge of her hospital bed, packing the few belongings she had, her phone charger, her wedding ring she hadn't worn since delivery, a paperback novel still folded to the same page she'd left it on weeks ago. You're not thinking straight, Michael said when she told him she was leaving. No, she replied. I'm finally thinking clearly. She signed the discharge papers at 6 a.m, without waiting for a doctor. A nurse tried to stop her. Claire pushed past her. With Aiden swaddled in a soft gray blanket, his tiny face buried against her chest, she stepped into the early morning chill of Boise, the sky still gray with dawn. She didn't take the main exit. Instead, she walked around the back of the hospital, through the loading dock, and into the waiting car of her childhood friend Mark. You sure about this? He asked, eyes scanning her face. No, she said. But it's the only choice I have. They drove for hours, northwest, toward Washington. Mark had access to an old family cabin near the edge of the Cascade Mountains. It was small, isolated, and hadn't been used in years. Perfect. Claire spent the first few days cleaning, sealing windows, gathering groceries. She slept with Aiden on her chest, waking at every sound. She turned off her phone. Deleted every social account. Went dark.
And slowly, the world faded away.
Aiden began to change. His hair, once thick and dense, began to thin, not fall out entirely, but soften. The coarse edges gave way to something finer. Claire watched him sleep for hours, memorizing every inch of his tiny body. His breathing was strong. His reflexes sharp. He smiled when she sang to him. He cooed when the wind rustled the trees outside their cabin. But there were moments. Moments when she noticed things, unsettling things. The way he tensed when a storm approached. The way his skin seemed to tighten, even harden, when startled. Once she dropped a pan in the kitchen, and in the instant it hit the floor, Aiden's body had gone rigid, like armor. She ran her fingers along his arm. His skin wasn't soft anymore. It had changed. Temporarily.
Like a reflex. What are you?
She didn't say the words aloud. But she thought them. Every night. One morning, she found something tucked beneath the cabin's porch railing. A manila envelope.
No name.
No stamp. Just a single phrase written across the front in block letters. He's not safe here. Claire looked around, heart hammering, but the forest was quiet. Inside the envelope was a photo. Grainy.
Black and white.
It showed her walking out of the hospital with Aiden. Someone had followed her. Someone knew where she was. She burned the envelope that night. Held Aiden tighter. And whispered over and over into the darkness.
You're mean.
And no one is taking you. The first snow came early that year. The Cascade Mountains lay blanketed in white, and the cabin was a fragile dot of warmth against the vast winter wilderness. Claire had started to adapt, wood stacked by the door, jars of preserved food lining the shelves, a routine of work and care stitched together like survival itself. She nursed Aiden by the fire, sang him lullabies, and tried not to think about the world beyond the trees. It had been 2 months since she left Boise. 2 months of silence from Michael. 2 months of wondering if he had simply given up. Until the day he returned. It was late afternoon when she heard the crunch of tires on snow. Panic surged through her. She grabbed Aiden, pressing him close, her mind racing. Mark wasn't supposed to come until the weekend. No one else knew where she was. She peered through the curtain and felt her stomach drop. Michael was climbing out of an old Jeep, his breath visible in the frigid air. He looked thinner, his face shadowed by stubble. He carried nothing but a duffel bag slung over his shoulder. Claire's first instinct was to bar the door. But Aiden stirred in her arms, cooing softly, and she froze. Could she really keep his father away forever?
When Michael knocked, she hesitated.
Then reluctantly, she opened the door. Claire, he said, his voice low. I just want to see my son. Her throat tightened.
You walked away.
I was scared. I didn't know how to handle it. But I've been thinking, and I can't stay gone. Please. Let me in. Against her better judgment, she stepped aside. Inside, Michael knelt beside the crib where Aidan was gurgling, wrapped in a quilt. For a long moment, he just stared. Then his face broke, not with fear this time, but with something closer to wonder. "Hey buddy," he whispered. "It's Dad." Aidan reached toward him with tiny fists, giggling.
The sound cracked something inside Claire.
For the first time since the hospital, she saw Michael soften, saw him look at their child not as an anomaly but as a son. For days, it almost felt normal. Michael chopped firewood, fetched water, even held Aidan so Claire could rest. They ate dinners by candlelight, and at night, when the wind howled through the trees, Michael told stories about when they first met, about the future they had once dreamed of. But trust was fragile. And Claire couldn't silence the suspicion gnawing at her. It came to a head on a snowy morning when she was cleaning. Michael had gone out to the Jeep to fetch something. His duffel bag lay half-zipped on the couch. Claire didn't mean to pry, but when she bent to pick up a blanket, a stack of papers slid out. She froze. The documents bore the logo of a company she didn't recognize, Verocco Genetics. Her pulse quickened as she scanned the words.
Biosample dièse 11, régénérative adaptive subject. Bilot, à description, mâle infant, born October 14 th, Boise, Idaho.
Subject demonstrates abnormal dermal density and hair follicle mutation. Preliminary analysis suggests unique cellular defense mechanism. Acquisition recommended. Her eyes darted to the bottom of the page. Payment agreement, $75,000.
End à signature. Michael Bennett.
Claire's breath caught like ice in her chest. Her hands trembled as she gathered the papers, fury mixing with disbelief. When Michael walked back in, brushing snow from his coat, he froze at the sight of her standing there, the contracts clutched in her fists. "What is this?" she demanded, her voice shaking. His face drained of color.
Claire.
"You sold him," she whispered. "You were going to hand our son over like a product." "It's not what you think," Michael said quickly, stepping forward. "They promised protection. They said he'd be safe with them." "Safe."
Her voice cracked.
"You think he's safe in a lab, hooked up to machines, treated like a science project?" "They're not monsters," he argued. "They're scientists. They can help him. They can figure out what he is." "He's a baby," she shot back. "What he is ours. He's mine." Michael's jaw tightened. "You can't raise him here.
You can't eat forever.
You're working on a laptop in a shack, barely getting by. What happens when people find you? When they come with lawyers and police? At least this way, we'd have money. We'd have a plan." Claire felt her stomach twist. "No. You don't mean we."
You mean you. You des seniors sont forts à péchec. Michael S. face ardente. You don't understand, Claire.
"The world isn't going to let us keep him. If we don't choose where he goes, someone else will." "No," she whispered, tears stinging her eyes. "The only choice you made was to betray us." She pointed to the door. "Get out."
Claire.
"Get out now, or I swear I'll call the sheriff." For a long moment, Michael didn't move. Then with a muttered curse, he grabbed his bag, stuffed the papers inside, and left. The Jeep roared to life, tires spinning in the snow, and then he was gone.
Claire stood trembling, Eden crying in the crib.
She rushed to scoop him up, holding him close, whispering fiercely into his hair.
"You won't let them take you."
"Not him. Not anyone." That night, when Aidan finally drifted to sleep, Claire sat by the fire with the papers spread in front of her. She read every line until the words blurred.
Verocco Genetics.
Acquisition recommended. They had known about Aidan since the day he was born. Maybe even before. The next morning, Mark arrived with groceries. Claire handed him the documents without a word. He read them silently, his expression darkening. "This isn't just Michael," he said finally.
"This is Biggie.
They've been watching you since the hospital. Someone sent them blood samples. They knew what Aidan was before you did." Claire's hands clenched. "Why?" "Because he's not just rare," Mark said. "He's unprecedented. And people like that, they don't see children. They see opportunity." Later that day, Claire's laptop pinged with a new message.
The sender was anonymous.
The subject line was chilling. You can't hide him forever. Attached was a photo. Her cabin.
Taken from the trees.
Someone had been close enough to watch them.
Claire shut the laptop with shaking on.
She walked to the crib, where Aidan lay sleeping peacefully, his tiny chest rising and falling in rhythm with the firelight. She bent down, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "They will never have you."
Nos talons à Ibrette.
But deep down, she knew the battle was no longer just about hiding. It was about survival. And the price of keeping her miracle was about to rise higher than she had ever imagined. The court summons arrived 2 weeks after Michael left. Stamped by the Idaho State Family Court, the document was cold, clinical, and devastating. A petition had been filed by a coalition of private medical institutions, backed by Veracco Genetics, requesting emergency legal guardianship over Aidan Bennett, citing extraordinary biological anomalies warranting state-supervised care and protection. Claire read it 3 times before the words made sense. They weren't just trying to study Aidan. They were trying to take him. The legal phrasing was careful, in the interest of public safety, ethical oversight of advanced phenotypical expressions, non-parental custodial consideration for scientific integrity. But Claire understood exactly what it meant. They wanted control. Permanently. Dr. Monroe was the first person Claire called. Within hours, Monroe had connected her with a civil liberties attorney in Portland, someone experienced in medical rights and unconventional custody cases. Mark helped coordinate logistics, documents, affidavits, witness lists. Evelyn, Michael's mother, showed up on Claire's doorstep without warning one night, her coat wet from rain and her eyes full of shame. "I know what my son did," she said quietly. "And I know what I said before. But I want to help, Claire. If you'll let me."
Claire hésita-t-elle.
"Why now?" "Because when my son walked away from you, I realized I had too. And I won't make the same mistake twice." The hearing was scheduled for March 2nd in Boise. Claire hadn't returned to the city since fleeing the hospital, and the thought of walking back into that world, with its cameras and whispers and sterile judgment, filled her with dread. But she had no choice. If she didn't fight, they would take Aidan forever. In the days leading up to the hearing, the story went public. Somewhere, perhaps leaked by someone inside the hospital or Veracco, a redacted version of Aidan's medical records was released. News outlets seized on it. Headlines exploded across social media. Mystery child born with animal traits, government involved? Biological anomaly or scientific breakthrough? Should parents have the right to keep genetic mutants? Claire's face was blurred in the photos, but not enough. Her name trended for days. Activists rallied on both sides. Hashtags emerged.
Hashtag Protect Eden. Hashtag Right to Science. Hashtag Le Timbre à Bois.
Some people called her brave. Others accused her of child abuse for denying him medical care. One online commentator said she was harboring a biological weapon in the woods.
Claire ignorait it all.
She focused on Aidan, feeding him, playing with him, holding him close through the long nights. He had begun to crawl now, clumsily but determined. His laughter filled the cabin, light and pure. His eyes followed her everywhere, trusting, unaware of the storm outside their door. The morning of the hearing, the courtroom was packed. News vans lined the street. Protesters stood on the sidewalks, waving signs. Inside, Claire sat at the defendant's table with her attorney, Mark at her side, Evelyn behind her. Dr. Monroe, who had volunteered to testify, waited in the hallway. The petitioners sat opposite, lawyers in expensive suits, representatives from Veracco and the partnering research institutions. Claire recognized one of the men from the documents Michael had tried to hide. The judge entered. The room fell silent. Opening statements began. The petitioner's attorney spoke calmly, methodically. "Your Honor, we are not here to strip a mother of her rights. We are here to ensure the well-being of a child who may possess traits previously unknown in human biology. The public has a vested interest in understanding and safeguarding such developments. We propose a supervised, ethical custodial arrangement in which the child receives the best scientific care available." Claire clenched her fists under the table. Then it was their turn. Her attorney stood, voice steady. "This is not about science. This is about power. A corporation sees a child with unusual traits and wants to own him. They use words like ethical and supervised to mask their intent, to isolate, experiment and control. The judge nodded slowly.
Bring in your witness.
Claire took the stand. She wore a simple navy blouse. No makeup. Hair pulled back.
No théâtrix.
I'm not a scientist, she began, her voice clear. I'm just a mom. But I know my son. I know the way he smiles when he hears music. I know the way he clings to my shirt when he's scared. I know how he smells after a bath and how he laughs when the wind moves the leaves outside our window. She paused, blinking back tears. I know that he's different. And I know that scares people. But he's still a child. He's not a subject.
Not un expériment.
He's mine. The courtroom was still. I've been called unstable.
Dangereux. Irresponsible.
But I'm the one who fed him every 3 hours when no one else would even look at him. I'm the one who sang him to sleep while the world speculated whether he was human enough to deserve love. Claire looked directly at the judge. Whatever is in his DNA doesn't give anyone the right to take him from me. When she stepped down, Evelyn stood. The courtroom seemed to collectively hold its breath.
My name is Evelyn Bennett, she said.
I'm Aiden's grandmother. And I was wrong about him.
Il est firmeik me cruel.
But I've watched Claire raise him with more strength and grace than anyone else I know. That boy is not dangerous. The people trying to own him are. Dr. Monroe followed. I've worked in pediatric genetics for nearly 2 decades, she testified. And yes, Aiden is unique. His biology challenges what we know. But in every way that matters, emotionally, cognitively, socially, he is a thriving, healthy infant. He deserves to grow, not to be dissected. The petitioners presented their final arguments, emphasizing precedent, ethics, and the greater good. They pointed to viral mutations, biosecurity risks, and responsible stewardship of evolutionary breakthroughs. Claire sat in silence as they spoke of her child like he was a discovery. When it was over, the judge adjourned the session, promising a ruling by morning. Outside the courthouse, the air was crisp. Claire held Aiden close, wrapped in his blue quilt, his cheek pressed against her collarbone. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. She ignored them all. That night, back in their borrowed room above Monroe's office in Boise, she rocked Aiden to sleep.
The city buzzed outside the window. The future over de juste beyond the glass.
I don't know what tomorrow brings, she whispered into his hair. But I know one thing. She kissed his forehead.
He will never stop fighting for you.
The courtroom was silent as the judge returned to his bench. Claire's heart thudded in her chest, loud and hollow. She sat with Aiden in her arms, his head resting against her shoulder, unaware of the weight pressing down on the adults around him. Mark sat beside her, jaw tight. Dr. Monroe stood in the back, eyes focused, calm but unreadable. Evelyn held her breath in the row behind. After reviewing the arguments presented, the judge began, and considering the testimony of both medical experts and those closest to the child, this court finds insufficient evidence to justify removal of custodial rights from the biological mother.
Claire exhaled, brise shaking.
Furthermore, the judge continued, we reject the petition filed by Veracco Genetics and its affiliated institutions. The court affirms the constitutional right of a parent to raise their child without undue interference, barring clear evidence of neglect, harm or endangerment, which has not been demonstrated here. There was no applause. Just a thick, stunned silence. Then the judge added, almost as an afterthought, that being said, this case will likely have implications for future legal frameworks surrounding genetic anomalies and bioethical governance. But those are questions for another court, another day.
Ébanged the gavel.
Claire's eyes filled with tears. She pressed her lips against Aiden's temple. He stirred, blinking up at her, then smiled. It was over. Or so she thought. Outside the courthouse, the media frenzy had reached fever pitch. Protesters cheered and shouted. Some celebrated the verdict as a victory for parental rights and humanity. Others held signs condemning Claire for hiding genetic advancement, calling the ruling short-sighted and dangerous. One man shouted at her as she passed, "That boy could save lives, and you're keeping him in the woods." A woman across the street yelled back, "He's a child, not a cure." Claire ignored them all. That night, she and Aidan returned to the cabin in the Cascades. Snow had begun to melt, and the forest was waking up again. The fire crackled in the hearth. Claire made a pot of soup, fed Aidan mashed sweet potatoes, and for the first time in months, allowed herself to feel something like peace. But peace, she would soon learn, was fragile. 3 days later, the video surfaced. Grainy, distant, captured by a drone or long-range camera, the footage showed a small child, barefoot, agile, darting through trees at unnatural speed. His skin shimmered in patches under the sunlight, not metallic, but something else, something adaptive. His eyes, caught briefly on camera, reflected light like an animal's. No one had to say his name. Everyone knew.
Eden Bennett Cook ton film, Is This the Evolution of Humanity?
The video went viral in hours. News anchors debated its authenticity. Scientists speculated wildly. Ethics panels were convened. Politicians called for hearings. Claire was inundated with interview requests, offers from tech billionaires, invitations to conferences, and veiled threats disguised as security concerns. One government official suggested relocation to a protected environment for further observation. Claire refused them all. She closed every account, burned every letter, changed her phone number again. Dr. Monroe warned her. The court protected your rights as a mother. It didn't make the world disappear. This will only get louder. I know, Claire said, but I'm not giving him up. She wrote a letter, just one, and published it anonymously through a small online parenting blog. It read, I never asked the world to understand him. I only asked the world to let him grow. He is not a project.
Not a headline.
Not a symbol. He is a boy who loves warm blankets and blueberry pancakes and the sound of rain. If we cannot allow different to exist without trying to own it, dissect it, or destroy it, then the problem is not him. It's us. The letter spread quietly. Some called it manipulative. Others called it the most human thing they had read all year. A few weeks later, Claire sat on the cabin porch, watching the horizon turn gold with spring. Aidan played in the dirt beside her, laughing as he chased a beetle with a stick. His hair had thinned into soft curls, and though patches of his skin still reacted when startled, hardening briefly, then returning to normal, he looked in almost every way like any other toddler. Except he wasn't. He was more. And less. And still somehow just a boy. Mom, he said, turning to her, his hands covered in soil, why do I feel the trees? Claire smiled. Because you're connected to things most people aren't. He crawled into her lap, curling against her chest.
I'm weird.
She kissed the top of his head.
You're wonderful.
But I'm not like the other kids.
No, she said softly. You're not.
But that's okay. He thought for a moment.
Will they come for me again?
She didn't answer right away. The wind moved through the pines, whispering secrets neither of them could hear. If they do, she said finally, we'll face them together. That night, after Aidan was asleep, Claire stood outside beneath a sky scattered with stars. She thought of the court, the headlines, the scientists who wanted to define her son before he could define himself. She thought of the choice she had made, not just to run, or to fight, but to believe. Believe that her child's humanity was not conditional. Believe that love could outlast fear. Believe that the world, no matter how cruel, could change. She looked up at the moon and whispered, let him be a boy. Please. Just let him be a boy. Far away, someone else watched the same moon. Someone with access to labs and funding and influence. Someone who had not forgotten about Aidan Bennett. But for now, the forest was quiet. And the boy was safe.